Welcome to the Michael Welch Podcast. Today, the NBA Final Four is set. Mavericks, Warriors, Celtics, and of course, the Miami Heat. We will cover that and talk the NFL schedule that was released this past week. Coming up on the Michael Welch Pod.
All my blessings, 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 all my blessings.
I need my blessings every penny, daily counting every single one, I'm seeing plenty. Level up and watch that beater turn into a Bentley. See I'm stunned, so I'm all I'm thinking, please don't tell me. Oh boy.
Well, let's start over in the Western Conference, where Sunday night, the Suns were absolutely decimated at home in a Game 7 that they never expected to see themselves in, as Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks absolutely crushed them on their home floor, holding them to 27 points. 27 points at halftime. 27 points in an NBA game, in the playoffs, elimination game, Game 7 at halftime against a number one seed that won 64 games this year. Luka Doncic himself had 27 points for Dallas at the half, equaling the same total that the Phoenix Suns had, and a 57-27 30-point lead at the half. Spencer Dinwiddie, who's come to life a little bit, who came over as part of the Porzingis trade halfway through the season, had 21 himself. And later on, Jalen Brunson in the second half dropped in 24 points. But this game didn't get any better. After halftime, it was a 46-point lead at one point, and the Phoenix Suns just took a nap. I don't know what the hell happened here. This was a baffling array of a great turnaround defensively throughout the series, as the Mavs really tightened up and just missing wide open shots for the Phoenix Suns, and just the strangest absolute disappearing act that you have ever laid witness to. The final score was 123-90. Only 2 games in the entire series were decided by single digits. 4 were decided by 20 or more points in a series that no one expected to see go 7 games after the Suns took a 2-0 lead, and a lot of folks fully expected to go 6 tops. Aiden was 1 for 4, Paul was 0 for 4, and Booker was 0 for 7 before the half. Not a lot of volume shooting from your top guys. Difficulty getting shots off. DeAndre at one point had an easy layup at one point, wide open under the bucket, and it just popped out. Missed threes popping out. Missed shots, defense smothering, and they just looked like they didn't want to be there. Just baffling. The Suns actually shot 50% from the field, 45% from 3 in the second half, but Dallas shot 66 and 62% and ended up overall shooting 56 from the field, 48% from 3, hit 19 3-pointers, 6 of which came from Luka, who finished with 35 points, but he sat out the entire fourth quarter. Again, Spencer Dinwiddie had 30, Jalen Brunson had 25. Cameron Johnson off the bench for the Suns led all scorers with 12. Booker led in shot attempts with 14. He was 3 for 14. Mikal Bridges had 11. Then Crowder had 9. Chris Paul was 4 for 8. So that shows you where the volume was for their top guys. DeAndre Aiden only played 3.5 minutes in the second half. A bunch of reports came out afterwards, of course, which reflected kind of where the Suns are at this point. Chris Paul has a left quad injury that could explain why he's been dragging the past few games. That, besides the fact that he's 37 years old and has been banged up. DeAndre Aiden, of course, has a contract. He's a restricted free agent coming up. So any offer that's made to him by another team can be matched by the Phoenix Suns, and he will surely be offered a max contract by a number of different suitors this season. So there's been some back and forth between him and the front office. He does have a good relationship with Monty Willis, the head coach. It has been reported, so no dispute there. So the DeAndre Aiden deal was just kind of weird. Chris Paul, of course, now coming out with an injury. Was Devin Booker still affected by an injury? Maybe, but still. He should have attempted more than 14 shots. But they were just dead in the water pretty much right from the get-go and had no shot at coming back from this after the first quarter. 27 points in the first half. That's outrageous. And just like that, the team with the best record, the best odds to come back and win, are out and have a lot of questions this offseason and how they're going to kind of rebuild. Chris Paul has already said he's not going to retire. His contract's still on the books, and Devin Booker's max contract extension, super max, which he's going to be at for staying with the team for so many years. You have to be with the team for so many years to be offered the super max extension. So super max for Devin Booker coming up. Possible max for DeAndre Ayton coming up. The Suns are trying to match that number. And Chris Paul starting to deteriorate possibly a little bit. It's a lot of question marks now all of a sudden for this team that was trying to win now. So the numbers right now look like Chris Paul for next season at $28 million, a little over $28 million at 37, still 37 years old. Just under $31 million in the 23-24 season at 38 years old. His 24-25 season at age 39 is $30 million, but is non-guaranteed, so they can get rid of him prior to that. Of course, he may come back healthy and a great player next season, but that is something to keep in mind. It's not super high as far as top NBA salaries. It falls just outside of the top 30. It'll still be top 40 as far as highest paid NBA players heading into next season. Devin Booker will have 7 years of service under his belt in the NBA and will have met the stipulations to be eligible for a 4-year Supermax extension, which he can sign with 2 years left on his remaining deal, which will effectively leave him on the Suns for 6 more seasons. But the Supermax will allow him to take up to 35% of the cap at that time in salary. Now, that won't kick in until the 24-25 season, and it also allows for an 8% increase every single season after that. So for the 3 subsequent seasons after that is signed, starting with the 25-26 season. Not very many players are signed to the Supermax, but that is something on the horizon for the Phoenix Suns to take into consideration as one of the top young stars, still only 25 years old, that they will have to plot out and align. It's also possible that while that Supermax starts to kick in, Chris Paul kicks out, and they will be able to bid him farewell as he either heads towards retirement or they don't keep him past the 24-25 season when that Supermax starts to kick in for Devin Booker. Again, it's not signed yet, but he's the one most likely to still be on the roster moving forward at only the age of 25. And Aiden could be signed back. We'll see what happens with that. That seems to be something that's going to be an ongoing point. Kind of depends, I think, on what teams are going to offer him, but it certainly seems like he's going to be offered max money. And I think the decision's probably already been made on whether they're going to counter or not. And I would assume that it certainly looks like he's going to be going elsewhere. So this could be a very new look Phoenix Suns coming over the horizon into next season. But the Dallas Mavericks, with Luka Doncic, who might be the most dangerous offensive threat left in the playoffs, with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Booker, Embiid, Nikola Jokic, all out, all 4, presumably top in the MVP voting, although it hasn't been officially announced. Nikola Jokic. It never sounds right when I say it. The goddamn Nuggets player who just won back-to-back MVPs. Nikola Jokic. Yes, that's correct. Yeah, it never sounds right when I say it. Regardless, Luka Doncic should be the top player heading forward in the NBA. Is the most exciting to watch, with some inconsistent play from Steph Curry and Jason Tatum being stuck in another defensive slogfest with the Miami Heat in this next round. The highest ceiling will be Luka Doncic. The most consistent right now is Luka Doncic, and the most likely to light up for 40 points on any given night is Luka Doncic. And they will be playing, of course, those Warriors with Steph Curry, who survived the feisty young Memphis Grizzlies in a slog fest, a wild whipping all over the place fest, really. We had injuries. We have Gary Payton for the Warriors out after busting an arm. We had suspensions. We had whoop that trick going in the stadium as players were jawing at each other, and the Warriors were taunting the Grizzlies, and the Grizzlies were able to taunt back after destroying the Warriors by 50-something points in Game 5 and forcing a Game 6. Ja Morant was out in Game 4, so surprising that this went 6 games as it did, but 4-2 series win for the Warriors, although again, they absolutely took a nap in Game 5. Don't know what the hell happened. I didn't even watch the first half of the game, turned it on late, and didn't bother going back to rewatch the first half for my notes because they were completely eviscerated. I thought half the starters didn't make the flight back for the game, and they were pulling fans out of the stands as replacements, because I don't know what in the holy hell happened. If there's anything we've learned from this playoffs, it's that inconsistency is consistent. The Warriors were down by almost 60 points at one point and completely tanked before rallying. They had a 3-1 series lead at that point. Grizzlies made it 3-2 with no Ja Morant. And they've had an excellent record this season with no Ja Morant. But this is still not a skilled enough team that they should have done any kind of damage to a Warriors team, which I still don't think is of championship quality. It's just no business in that happening. But we've seen blowouts even in the second round. Celtics and Bucks exchanged blowouts. Even a banged-up 76ers team exchanged blowout wins with the Miami Heat. Of course, the Warriors here crushed by the Grizzlies and vice versa in multiple games. And as I stated earlier, the Suns and the Mavericks had 4 games with 20-plus point win margins. And multiple games from multiple series where teams were down 40-plus points at different times. And sometimes it's just discrepancy in 3-point shots being made. That's been a difference maker. Sometimes it's just lineup changes. There's been a number of different injuries, but just slight changes in the lineup here and there that may have led to things kind of getting out of control. But to the point we've seen some swings in some series this year, it just seems absolutely bonkers. But regardless, extending the series to 6 games, still no Ja Morant. The Warriors were able to comfortably put the Grizzlies away then at home in Game 6 in advance. Now, how much confidence do I have with them against the Mavericks? Ironically enough, this is the 3 and the 4 seed, with Phoenix and the Grizzlies being 1-2 or both out. And I don't think it's wild to see the Mavericks in the finals. The Warriors, led by Steph Curry, you really like to see his 3-point percentage up around 40. You like to see the explosive nights. He shot under 33% from 3 against the Grizzlies. I believe he's just under 36% in the playoffs. But you don't have the confidence that he's just going to walk into a 3 or work his way off ball to get open. He always does that, but to get the big shots, it just doesn't look the same. And Klay Thompson, another guy you're not sure what you're getting from night to night, even though he's currently shooting 36% from 3 at a lower volume. Sometimes he's just bricking these threes. It's not quite the same thing. Jordan Poole looked excellent early on in the playoffs and has fallen off to shooting 31% from 3, and at times does not quite look ready yet, as he shouldn't. In the closing game, Draymond Green took 14 shot attempts. 14 shot attempts, which is a lot for him. He's been averaging 5 per game on the series, just over 5 per game, and just completely ignoring the offensive aspect to being a basketball player, the shot creation portion. Of course, he's been wheeling and dealing, playing a little point guard, but hasn't been shooting. So players haven't been defending him. It's 5-on-4 when the Warriors are on offense, and he was able to kind of take control of that in Game 6 in the closer, shooting 6 for 14. But he's not a threat offensively anymore. And Kevin Looney isn't on the floor half the time. He did log 35 minutes and grabbed 22 rebounds in the closer, including 11 of them on the offensive glass. But this is, again, they don't have their lineup quite set. Steph Curry is still an offensive player. Klay Thompson isn't shooting well from the floor, 40%. Poole can't be relied on to shoot. It's 31% from 3. All those guys are struggling a little bit defensively. Draymond Green doesn't play offense. And we're not sure what the whole 5 lineup is going to be. Is Poole going to be on the floor in crunch time? Is it going to be Poole and Wiggins? Are they going to go a little bit bigger with Looney? Is he going to be on the floor? Of course, they started Jonathan Kuminga for a while. He hasn't played. He got a DNP last game, did not play at all, the young rookie. So they still don't have a real cohesive lineup yet. Is it going to be Looney, Wiggins, Green, Thompson, Curry, or is Poole going to be in the mix and they're going to pull Looney out? Are we going to see a little bit more Kuminga? What's the rotation going to be? Do we have any players that can actually play offense and defense and be relied upon? This is a real concern for the Warriors going forward, I think. So I'm actually really hot on the Mavericks right now. I think they could take this in 6. They really look like the most complete team. Obviously, the Warriors are the veteran group. They should have Steve Kerr back. He tested positive for COVID and was not around for the end of the Grizzlies series. But this game will probably have a lot of turnovers again. That's been an Achilles heel of the Warriors. We'll probably have games that are blowouts either direction, as one team will hit half a dozen more threes than the other squad and really get out in transition. We'll see plenty of games like that. We won't see a lot of traditional bigs, post-up action in the half court. We won't have a lot of true rim protection on the defensive end. So there'll be a lot of probably driving, a lot of perimeter shooting as well, and just a lot of guys either collapsing on defense or helping over, and a lot of small ball as well, I would assume. And a lot of opportunities for Luka to post up a bit offensively. Of course, clearing Porzingis out there has really helped that offense move a little bit. And we may not see Looney as much in this series, and Draymond Green maybe playing more center. Could certainly see that. So it'll be interesting to see what adjustments are made game to game. We might even see Looney in there as a starting center for a game if they feel that it gives them size and an advantage on the boards. So we'll see. It'll be an exciting series, and that kicks off this Wednesday. Now this Tuesday, the Western Conference Finals between the Miami Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks, the 1 and 2 seed. Miami has slowly burned their way through the playoffs, burning out the Hawks in the first round, and really, kind of taking the luxury of, slowly taking them out in 5 games. Lowry missed time in that series, although he has not been productive at all in the playoffs, and Jimmy Butler missed a couple games as well, and it really didn't hurt the team at all in taking care of the Hawks in that series. They also took care of the 76ers in 6 games. Joel Embiid, of course, coming back with a ripped-up hand and a ripped-up thumb and a smacked-up face, was wearing a mask after they went down 2-0 in that series to tie it up with the Miami Heat before they were able to turn on the Jets and finish them off. Very dangerous position there for the Miami Heat, but they were able to kind of take care of business there against the 76ers, who were, banged up as far as Joel Embiid was concerned. They were banged up as far as Joel Embiid was concerned. They're not getting consistent play out of Harden. Getting inconsistent play out of Tyrese Maxey for the opposite reason of Harden. Harden's a veteran, and there's some question about his commitment to play. Tyrese Maxey, the young man out of Kentucky, a steal falling out of the lottery last season, has been a great contributor taking over the point position, but he has not quite been a reliable scorer quite yet. Tobias Harris has been solid for that team in the playoffs, but they're just paying him too much money. And some of the other contributors just weren't able to step up, and Danny Green suffering a tough injury, so just didn't quite work out for the 76ers, unfortunately. But the Miami Heat should be underdogs against the mighty Boston Celtics in this upcoming series starting Tuesday here. Unfortunately, the Celtics are going to be in a tough spot coming off a very physical, tough series on much shorter rest at home. So it's going to be tough if they lose game 1 here and have to win 4 of 6 to close out the series. So it'd be real nice if the Celtics win game 1 here, because I think that they are the best team remaining in the playoffs. Of course, winning 4 games, the only sweep so far this postseason, hopefully the only sweep that we'll have, against the Brooklyn Nets, 4-0. The combined score of those 4 games, I believe, was 14 points, and then knocking out the Bucks in 7 games. Blowouts, a few of those, both directions. But 2 of the 3 losses to the Bucks, we have to remember, one came at the buzzer, where Marcus Smart actually had a shot flipped up to tie the game, to send it to overtime, to extend the game, but the ball was still in his hand as the buzzer went off, so the Bucks held on to secure that victory. And the other win, they had a 10-point lead there in the fourth quarter and lost that, and had an opportunity there with about 40-something seconds left. The Celtics actually had a 1-point lead and didn't box out on a missed Bucks free throw, and the Bucks grabbed the board and put the bucket back in to take the lead, which then forced the Celtics to make plays down the stretch, and they couldn't quite do it, to just hang on to the ball and get fouled and go up by 3 points with the game running down, and force the Bucks to either tie the game or to kind of play the free throw battle out. So they really could have possibly won that series a little sooner. Of course, the Bucks on their side had no Chris Middleton. The Celtics blew out the Bucks in their Game 7 as well. That was the same night as Phoenix and Mavs, so 2 really bummer Game 7s that night, as they were both blowouts. Final there was 109-81 as the Celtics held the Bucks to their lowest point total of the series, 81 points. And Boston has now shut down 3 of the top scorers, Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. I shouldn't say shut down. Limited 3 of the top scorers in the playoffs, and they've limited in all aspects: the mid-range game, 3-point game, from the paint, transition game. They've had to stop these scorers in all their different aspects. So moving forward here against the Miami Heat, which doesn't really have a key top scorer, I think that they'll be okay, as their defense is... it's going to be a bloody defensive physical battle again. And if they can kind of survive game 1 and not come out behind the 8 ball right off the bat and have to win 4 of 6 basically down the stretch, then they should be in good shape, because they're going to have a far and away advantage on the offensive end, with Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero kind of being the offensive centerpieces for the Miami Heat. Duncan Robinson hasn't played a number of games. Of course, he's a great shooter off the bench for the Miami Heat. Bam has his moments, but again, the offense has been spotty for the number 1 seed in the East. And the Celtics have been able to win without Jason Tatum at times. Al Horford, was so happy to see him. He exploded for 30 points in game 4. That was a playoff career high for him to really take the reins on offense. Jason Tatum, of course, one of the rising superstars still in this league, did not have to be the leading scorer every single night. We have multiple guys who can play defense either in the perimeter or the interior to stop the threats here. And even Robert Williams, who's been a core piece kind of anchoring the defense in the middle, who has missed multiple games again, trying to quickly come back from that meniscus injury. Whether he's able to go for all the games, some of the games, none of the games, they still have multiple defensive bodies in Marcus Smart, Grant Williams, Al Horford, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. Or you can just keep throwing defensive pieces at you, grind the game out, find ways to score. and I just like them so much better than the Miami Heat. The Celtics are currently shooting over 37% from 3 in the playoffs. The Miami Heat are way down at 32%, just a touch over 32%. Jimmy Butler is the leading scorer for the team right now at 28 points per game, 28.7, which currently slots him in at 4th on the list for most high scoring average throughout the playoffs. And of course, that's a little skewed because some guys are done in the playoffs and have played more games, and some have played more, some have played less. So the sample size is varied. But Jimmy Butler's 4th on the list. The next Miami Heat player on that list for average scoring is Bam, and he's tied for 40th with Dylan Brooks of Memphis at 16.6 points per game. And then you have Tyler Hero down at the 49th spot at 15.8 points per game. So that's the discrepancy in guys that are scoring and where the scoring is coming from. It's Jimmy Butler and then whoever is able to put the ball in the bucket that night. The series could still go 7. As you very passionate guys on either side, especially in Marcus Smart and Jimmy Butler. It's going to be very physical. You're going to have guys banged up. It'll depend on how the games are called. If there's a lot of fouls and foul trouble, depending on what city you're at and things like that. So it could go 7. If Celtics had a little bit more rest time and I was more confident they'd win game 1, I would say it could go 6 as well. But I'm kind of have a hunch it's going to be Mavericks and Boston in the finals. That's what my thought is right now. And I think Boston, I originally had Boston losing to Phoenix in 7 in the finals. I'm thinking right now it's going to be Boston over Dallas in 6 or 7 in the finals is where my thought process is right now. But we're going to have a very physical, probably low scoring series here with Boston and Miami, between two very well-coached franchises, and we're going to have probably a little bit sloppier, but a little bit more erratic series, I would think, between the Mavericks and the Warriors, and that could be very fun as well. So great defense on one side, and I think a little bit more erratic, and a little bit more chess pieces as far as making adjustments on both sides of the ball and lineup changes on the side of the Warriors and the Mavericks. So very excited. Again, the Eastern Conference starts tonight, Tuesday, ESPN, 8:30 in Miami. That's Boston and Miami. And tomorrow, Wednesday the 18th, in San Francisco. That's where the Warriors are at now. The Golden State Warriors will be hosting Dallas. That's at 9 o'clock on TNT. Let's talk about NFL schedules. It was released on Thursday. There's a whole watch show planned around it now on the NFL Network, I believe. And important notes are made, of course, with every game being super critical. So let's take a look at a few of the highlights. I've compiled what I consider important notes, which may or may not be relevant when the season actually comes around. Of course, the high points that are hit are the easiest schedule, the weakest schedule, which team has to travel the most or the least, how much rest time there is when there's a Thursday night game or a international game, that type of thing. So the New York Giants, by most metrics, have one of, if not the easiest schedule upcoming, in part because of their division, the AFC East, pretty much being a toss-up with the Eagles, the Commanders, and Dallas. All of them are placed in the 10 easiest schedules with uncertainty, and the entire AFC East is playing the AFC South this season, which is the Colts, the Titans, the Texans, and Jags. And, of course, the Texans and Jags, again, are figuring to be pretty much throwaway teams this season as they continue to rebuild. And the Titans and Colts are still to be seen, pretty much. Titans certainly seem to be taking a step back, trading away A.J. Brown, releasing Julio Jones, which is not unexpected, but the receiving core is a little bit up in the air. We'll see how much tread is left in Derrick Henry's tires, per se. But they certainly didn't seem to take a step forward this season. And the Colts, in trading for Matt Ryan, maybe they've advanced. We'll see. But being in a division with multiple question mark teams and playing another division with multiple question mark teams certainly helps in giving them one of the easiest schedules. And they're also playing a fourth place schedule because they finished in fourth place last season. 5 of their 6 divisional games will be played in their final 7 games. So they play the Cowboys once early, and then in their final 7 stretch, they will play the Cowboys again, the Commanders twice, and the Eagles twice. So they'll have plenty of time at the beginning of the season against the Panthers, the Bears, the Jaguars, the Seahawks, the Texans, and the Lions to potentially figure things out, to see if Daniel Jones can kind of get his act together or not. Just figure out what the hell they're doing on offense and kind of get that team around. The defense figures to be not quite as in disarray. Get the coaching situation figured out. Get all the pieces figured out to possibly make a run through what could be a weak division late and maybe grab a playoff spot, maybe division title. So that is possibly in play. The Eagles do play 4 road games this season on short rest, which is super rare. 21 teams play 1 or no road games on a short week. 5 teams play 2 road games on a short week. 5 teams play 3 games on a short week. But the Eagles, 4 road games on short weeks rest. So that figures to really put a kink in their otherwise what maps out to be easy schedule. Washington, on the other hand, starting in Week 10 against the Eagles, they have 4 games against opponents who are coming off extended rest because they're playing Thursday night football games. So they get 3 days extra rest. So 4 games in their final 8 will be against opponents that have extended rest and preparation periods to play against them. So those are 2 factors working against the Eagles and the Commanders. Little edges in their ability to kind of win these games, despite the fact that their schedules are a little bit easier. The hard-knocking Detroit Lions hopefully be experiencing a few harder knocks this season. 4th place schedule. They play the AFC East, the Eagles, the Giants, the Commanders, and Dallas. They also get Seattle, Jacksonville, Carolina, the Jets in that division. They play at New England Week 5, home against Miami Week 8, home against Green Bay Week 9, and that's really the tough slate. That's it. They play at Green Bay Week 18 in a game that may or may not matter. Of course, we hope that it does matter for somebody, whether it's Green Bay or the Lions maybe wrapping up a division, maybe getting involved in the playoff picture. We'll see. But it looks like right now the toughest game is either a home game against Green Bay or a road game against New England. As far as most difficult schedules, there is some unanimous decision that the AFC West, the Denver Broncos, Kansas City Chiefs, Las Vegas Raiders, Los Angeles Chargers, and the NFC West, Arizona Cardinals, Los Angeles Rams, San Francisco 49ers, Seattle Seahawks. All those squads end up towards the top or at least the middle in schedule strength difficulty, in part because all those teams play each other in their division and then cross over as all the AFC West teams and all the NFC West teams will play each other this season, which makes it particularly difficult for the strongest division in the league this year, the Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers of the West crossing over into the NFC West to play the Cards, Rams, 49ers, and Seahawks. Presumably the Seahawks will have a tough season ahead, although they're trying to scotch tape that roster together. And the Cardinals certainly seems like they have some dark clouds looming overhead with Kyler Murray and his displeasure, even though he has a contract now. The Hopkins suspension looming. Is Cliff Kingsbury really cut out for the NFL? The 49ers quarterback controversy heading into the season, along with the Deebo Samuel's contract situation. So they have a number of issues where the teams there could go south. No pun intended. But the Broncos, Chiefs, Raiders, Chargers, that division, any of those teams could make the playoffs. So That would not be surprising. The Jets also got the short end of the stick. Difficult division. They also start the first month playing the Ravens, Browns, Bengals, and Pittsburgh Steelers as they play the entire AFC North right off the bat. Now, this whole division is really hard to gauge in terms of how difficult they will be to play, with the Cincinnati Bengals presumably continuing to take a step up, the Pittsburgh Steelers presumably taking a step back, the Ravens presumably spinning in a circle, and the Browns, Deshaun Watson situation up in the air, although it seems like it's possible that some of the suspension and lawsuits surrounding the case might even get it pushed to a potential suspension pushed to next season, so we may not see that this year. Deshaun Watson might very well play a full season for the Browns this year, but that could be it will be a very tough stretch, a very tough month to open up for the retooling Jets. They haven't won a game in September since 2018. Somehow the Texans also get a tough draw as well, playing that entire AFC West group: Broncos, Chargers, Raiders, Chiefs. They also pull the Cowboys, the Browns. So even though the division is weak, they get a little bit of a tough draw for them as well when you pull that entire division. Our Thanksgiving Day schedule is not quite as exciting. Our 12:30 game will be the Detroit Lions, of course, hosting the Buffalo Bills. The New York Giants, the mighty, mighty Giants, will be hosting the Dallas Cowboys at 4:30. Of course, the Cowboys playing on Thanksgiving as well, on the road this time. And the Vikings will be the 8:20 game. They'll be hosting Patriots. That seems to be the top view of the night, but none of these games seem particularly interesting as of right now. Christmas Day, which is funny because it lands on a Sunday this year. So 11 games will be played on Christmas Eve, Saturday, and we'll have 3 Christmas Day games that will go against the NBA. At 1 o'clock, we'll have the Miami Dolphins hosting the Green Bay Packers. Much more appetizing. The LA Rams will be taking on the Denver Broncos at 4:30 in an excellent game there. So we'll see Matthew Stafford, no longer aligned, but still playing on a holiday. And the Arizona Cardinals will be hosting Tampa Bay at 8:20 in that late slot. So that seems like a much more appetizing slate for the Christmas Day games. And we have 5 international games this year, all coming before the holidays. Perhaps I should have stated these first. We have 3 in London, 1 in Munich, 1 in Mexico City. So October 2nd at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time on the NFL Network, we will have the Minnesota Vikings and the New Orleans Saints playing at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I sure hope I said that right, but that'll be the Vikings and the Saints. So a decent game, hopefully, October 2nd. Then we have the Giants and the Green Bay Packers. Again, a 9:30 start time at the same stadium the following week, October 9th. Then we'll have the good old Jacksonville Jaguars and the Denver Broncos just before Halloween, October 30th at Wembley Stadium. That'll be on ESPN Plus, which sucks. And then Munich at Allianz Arena on November 13th. On the NFL Network, we will have the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, which sure looked like a great game previous to the season. And finally, Mexico City will get the San Francisco 49ers and the Arizona Cardinals in a big divisional game, of course, at El Strado Aztec Stadium for Monday Night Football. And that game will be at 8 o'clock Eastern Time on ESPN. So very excited to hopefully see more of the cities as they show more of the arenas and surrounding areas during the broadcasts of these games. And of course, always fun to see the fans in their eclectic collection of uniforms during these games. It's not a bad slate, though. Interesting to see Munich and more Mexico City, several games in London, and a nice hodgepodge as we see 10 different squads playing international games. We do have several teams that have their max allotted 5 prime time slots this season. 13 teams have that max 5 slots. Bengals, Bills, Broncos, Buccaneers, Chiefs, teams you wouldn't necessarily expect it if they weren't strong programs like they are now. The Packers as well, strong fan base there, obviously. And then some of the major markets that are doing well right now: Eagles, Patriots, Steelers, 49ers, Chargers, Rams, Cowboys. Detroit Lions are the only team that do not have a primetime game. And one of the last points here, let's not forget, Amazon now owns Thursday Night Football starting September 15th. That should be week 2. Starting with the week 2 games, they own the rights now. You need Amazon Prime in order to watch and stream the game, unless there's some additional instruction. They do have a full setup page for how to watch it now, but I believe it should work the same as any other streaming platform. And they are promoting, I quote, real-time stats while you watch. X-Ray for Live Sports provides additional information like real-time stats, live play-by-plays, team and player information, and more while you watch. Access X-Ray for any of the following devices. So, it could be a very interesting experience. It sucks for everybody that as we move away from cable and diversify into streaming services, which have become more prevalent and easily available and accessible, we're now further diversifying those into our football watching habits. But hopefully they can make a single game on Thursday night a more enjoyable experience, and including these stats, and this can be as an experimental ground to try new elements that may be reincorporated into normal broadcasting at some point. So hopefully it'll come up with some new elements and unique design that can make the experience more enjoyable. I do just wonder about the accessibility sometimes to even something like Amazon, which everybody has, but still, it's something that requires disposable income to subscribe to and is another subscription. And I hope that folks that still hope to just watch a football game are able to access and do so. It is going to be hosted by Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit, and Tony Gonzalez. That should be a great crew. I do like Kirk on the college football. Tony Gonzalez, I have no clue. We all love Al Michaels, I think. So it should be an interesting group. Hopefully a group that meshes, and it has potential to be a really good viewing experience. I just hope that it's accessible for everyone. I am really excited to see how it all turns out. I just know my dad won't be watching Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. And I absolutely know that I will forget, come that second Thursday night, where the hell the game is broadcasting from. So those are just a few notes on the schedule. Thanks for tuning in. I will catch you a little later in the week.
All my blessings, all my blessings, all my blessings, all my blessings, all my blessings.
Everything given could get took in a minute, so I stay diligent and keep pushing the limits. If I could think it, I did it. Just know that I lived it. I'm with it, counting up the digits.